So this morning, I was watching Cult to Consciousness on YouTube, and it's a channel dedicated towards interviews with survivors from cults, which is religious abuse, um, and many other types of abuse, right? So these people have had to escape away from these places and people, churches, etc., etc. And it's interesting because growing up, I was taught that Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, um, people like this were in a cult. And I went to college when I took those courses. And the interesting part about it is it never once occurred to me that I was in one. Now, I do admit that, like, the entire time that I was in church or in college, sometimes I wondered, what if there's more than this? What if everything I'm being taught is a lie? Or I always wondered, there was a part of me that was like, what if this is not true? What if there's something about this that's completely wrong? And it was sort of like that nagging feeling or voice inside myself. But I didn't entertain it too much because I was really afraid of apostasy. I was afraid of the sin of unbelief, and basically, if you denounce the church, you're considered an apostate. You're considered no better than a sinner, but worse, because you've denounced it, you've walked away from it. But yet, that's your greatest power, and this is why they fear it so much. Someone who walks away from the abuse of the church and what it teaches is very powerful because they can awaken others to the truth as well. So it's very interesting. Like for me, I went through childhood molestation from a sibling, a family member, right? And it was hidden. I remember Child Protection Services coming to my school to interview me, ask questions about this because of another child who had been harmed. One of my school teachers in the Christian school I went to was present during that interrogation, basically. They would ask questions like, were you touched? Were you hit? Were you harmed physically? And it was intrusive for me. As a child, I did everything I could to be a good girl and to obey, to not get in trouble. And, to get called to the principal's office thinking I had done something wrong was scary. And only to find out it had something to do with something that happened to me and other kids. But, my parents taught me not to talk to strangers. And these people were strangers, but yet the teacher with me was there to reassure me that it was safe to talk to these strangers. But I was still terrified. I went home and I told my mother about this. I was very upset. It was very scary. And I was abused one time. The person who did this to two other children that we know of. And it wasn't church related, but because we went to a church, and the church I went to was also my school. The teacher there knew, as well as the pastor. So after everything ended, not one of them interfered to help me. And my parents brought me to um, one counseling session or one visit with a psychiatrist, I think. And they were asking me questions and asking me to draw pictures. And they asked me to draw a picture of my house. But I was so nervous and scared of being alone with a stranger that I drew a house and I forgot to put the windows. And it was sort of like this anxiety. I hurried up and drew it, but I forgot the windows. The psychiatrist or the psychologist or whatever it was saw that as there's no windows into this home, so there's hidden secrets. Yes, but I was also anxious and I forgot the windows. So, my mother thought that was complete BS, and never brought me back again. So I never got the help I needed. The person who went through this, the person who did this to me, went on probation, and I don't know how long, a year or two. But I personally never got justice for myself, and my family never knew about it until I spoke up around the age of 35, and they didn't really want to believe me. So, yeah. And the other thing is, like, the whole Christian school, Christian academy, and church thing. Like, I remember when I was a teenager, and there would be this grown man, and he was in his 50s or 60s. He was always hugging me, always holding me close to him, always telling me he loved me, always saying that I was his favorite, making me feel really uncomfortable with how close he was holding me to his body. And he would tell me I was beautiful. And this was in public. This was around all the other people in church. It was done publicly. Not one person noticed that it was a grown man who was married holding me like this. Or they noticed but didn't think anything of it. And not one person stood up for me, but I didn't know how to stand up for myself. My own mother said that this guy, she thought he was a predator. He was acted unusual and strange around children. But yet, she never stood up for me either. So it's very, very frustrating. And also concerning my mother, she never once validated me in anything that happened with this person who harmed me. Always said I was overreacting, making too much of a big deal of it. But yet again, my mother also grew up with family members, with her siblings. We touched each other as children, in private places. And she said it was normal. It's not. Not normal for children to be touching each other there. And it should never be normalized or acceptable. And she grew up Catholic, converted to American Baptist. So I never had that support. I never got justice. And I was never validated when I spoke up. So that's one of many reasons I do not have any contact with these people anymore. As far as church goes, I don't attend anymore. There are many other reasons why I don't attend, but that's one of them. The church will always cover up church business. If there's one of their people involved in one of these incidents, they will do everything they can to bury it, sweep it under the rug, and they will do everything they can to pretend it never happened. And they encourage you to side with the person who sinned and pretend it didn't happen, and you have told to forgive them, but encourage never to go to the law and encourage not to find justice. And this is why it keeps happening over and over. So my thoughts are, if you've gone through something like this, try to get justice. Speak up. If you're in a safe place, definitely do it. But at the same time, if you're not able to, I say get out and get away. I've got a family now, and my family is not exposed to this. And I'm very, very grateful for that. So thank you for listening. And I hope that somebody out there resonates, understands, might find some sort of encouragement to break away or to find strength in whatever you're going through. Have a great day. Bye.